Have you ever bitten into a Lindor truffle and felt that magical moment when the shell cracks and the middle just melts away? That's no accident. There's real science and some very clever engineering behind it. In this video, we'll reveal how Lindt creates that luxurious melting center and why it makes Lindor more than just a chocolate. Let's dive in. Lindor is one of Lindt's most iconic products. Its selling point is obvious: a delicate shell and inside, a melting, creamy center. It is famous for giving you a double texture experience, a crisp outer shell with a molten heart. But how do they make it like that, reliably, every single time? That's what we're uncovering today. To start, Lindt has actually described part of the method. According to their site, the shell is created first by placing fine, tempered Lindt chocolate into a mold. That mold is then spun on its axis so that the chocolate coats the inside evenly. Then, a separate, softer chocolate filling is placed inside the shell. During production, the two parts, the shell and the filling, are fused together under controlled conditions so that they become one unit, yet maintain their different textures. This isn't a simple pour filling into a shell and you're done process. It is engineered so that the shell and the filling interact in very specific ways. The shell has to crack cleanly, and the filling has to melt at the perfect moment, right after the shell breaks. Creating a chocolate that cracks and then flows is a serious technical challenge. You need materials with different melting behaviors, but they still have to be compatible enough to bind together. Here are some of the key things Lindt engineers have to manage. The shell must be firm enough to hold its shape, resist being squished, and crack crisply when you bite into it. The filling must be softer, melt at a lower temperature, and flow smoothly, but not so much that it leaks out early or gets absorbed by the shell. The bond between the shell and filling needs to be strong enough so they don't separate but still allow for the shell to break cleanly. The trick is choosing the right mix of fats, particle sizes, and the right tempering and cooling profiles so that both parts behave exactly as intended. Have you ever noticed that the melting center in a Lindor can feel slightly cooler when it first touches your tongue? What's happening there? Well, one explanation comes down to thermal conductivity and heat absorption. The filling often contains fats that absorb the heat from your mouth more rapidly than the shell does. This rapid heat absorption can create a brief, cooler sensation. On forums, chocolate lovers have pointed this out, saying the center feels colder because it absorbs heat more quickly than the shell. While that's just an observation from fans, not an official Lindt claim, it lines up perfectly with the idea that the filling is engineered to respond differently to heat. The shell is more stable, while the filling is more sensitive, allowing it to melt faster once heat transfers in. To make both the shell and filling work so well together, Lindt relies heavily on its deep expertise in chocolate refinement. Lindt's legacy in Conching, that's the process of grinding, mixing, and smoothing chocolate over long periods, is key to how fine and stable their chocolate is. Because the chocolate is extremely smooth, with fine particles and well-blended fats, it helps create a perfect interface between the shell and the filling. The shell can be thin yet structurally uniform, and the filling can melt cleanly without any graininess. So, Lindor isn't just about filling a shell. It is about manipulating chocolate quality at a microscopic level so that the shell and filling perform as a perfect pair. While Lindt keeps its full recipe a trade secret, we can guess some of the manufacturing steps they must have mastered. First, the tempering of the shell chocolate has to be precise to get the right crystal structure, making the shell stable but still crackable. The mold spinning ensures a uniform coating thickness because any thin spot could crack too early. The filling formulation involves carefully selecting fats, cocoa butter, and other ingredients to lower the melting point while preserving structure. Then, they have to carefully cool the filled truffle so the shell and filling set without creating internal stress. Finally, there's probably a post-production aging period, letting the truffles rest to allow for stabilization. Each step demands tight control of temperature, timing, and mixing. That's how Lindor can be so consistent all over the world. Now, you might ask, is all this effort really worth it? Absolutely. Here's how it elevates Lindor. First, there's the sensory delight. That slow reveal, a crisp shell giving way to a molten center, creates a moment of surprise and indulgence. It also creates a perception of luxury. Most everyday chocolates have a uniform texture, but Lindor sets itself apart with that texture contrast. This builds incredible brand loyalty, People associate that melting center specifically with Lindor, which is a strong emotional bond. And finally, it's an engineering barrier. It's hard for competitors to replicate it exactly unless they can control all the same materials, temperatures, and processes. In short, Lindor isn't just a candy, it's a carefully engineered experience. Want to test this yourself? Here are 2 small experiments you can try at home. First, the shell crack test. Freeze a Lindor for a few minutes, then bite it. You might find the shell cracks differently, maybe more brittle or less elegantly. That shows you just how much temperature matters for the shell's properties. Next, the center feel test. Let a Lindor sit at room temperature, then bite it. Then try one that's slightly cooler. Notice how the melt changes. Does the inside feel cooler at first? It gives you a sensory clue to how the filling interacts with heat. If you try these, tell me your results in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences. So there you have it. Lindor's melting center is not a fluke. It's the result of smart engineering, precise chocolate science, and decades of Lindt's mastery. The shell is crafted to crack, the filling is formulated to flow, and together they produce that magic you taste. If you learned something new today, smash that like button and subscribe for more behind the brand secrets. And let me know, which food or brand Ichibum's secret inside do you want me to uncover next? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.